Most people don't realize this. Your greatest power is not in what happens to you, but in how you choose to respond to it. The difference between people who rise and those who remain stuck is not talent, not background, not even opportunity. It's response. Life will test you. People will provoke you. Circumstances will press you into tight corners. But here's the truth. How you respond in those moments will either create peace or chaos, clarity or confusion, progress or regret. You were not designed to be a puppet of emotion. You were born with the capacity to pause, to reflect, to choose. But the tragedy is, most people are not trained to use it. They react instinctively, emotionally, destructively. And then they wonder why the same cycles keep repeating. Reaction is natural, but response is intentional. Think about it. When pressure shows up, do you explode? Do you shut down? Do you lash out, say things you regret, make decisions you wish you hadn't? That's reaction. That's impulse. That's living at the mercy of your emotions. But response is the fruit of discipline. It's the evidence of a mind that has been trained, a character that has been shaped, a future that is being protected. Let me say this clearly. Your future depends on your ability to pause. Not everything demands your reaction, but everything deserves your wisdom. And wisdom isn't born in chaos. It grows in stillness. The power to respond is the power to rewrite the moment. You don't have to be ruled by what hurt you. You don't have to echo the anger that was thrown at you. You can choose a different energy, a higher standard, a better outcome. You see, training the mind is not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. And once you master yourself, you're no longer a victim of the moment. You become the author of it. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? Have you ever made a split-second decision driven by anger or fear, only to realize later it wasn't the right move? We've all been there, because reaction is easy. Reaction is fast. It doesn't require thought, only feeling. It rushes in like a flood, triggered by an emotion, an offense, a threat, or even a misunderstanding. And before you know it, damage is done, not just to others, but to yourself. That's because reaction is instinct. It's what the untrained mind does when it feels cornered, criticized, or challenged. But response is a decision. It's deliberate. It's thoughtful. It's powerful, not because it's loud, but because it's controlled. The tragedy is, most people live their lives trapped in reaction mode. They wake up reacting to stress, they scroll and react to news, they go to work and react to people, they enter conversations already preloaded with defense, their day becomes a string of emotional triggers, and they don't even realize they're not in control. Their reactions are. And over time, reaction becomes habit. And that habit becomes identity. You'll hear people say, that's just how I am. I speak my mind, but truthfully, what they're really saying is, I've never trained my mind to pause. Reaction is the lowest form of behavior because it's purely survival driven. It's your mind saying, protect me now, even if it harms your future. It comes from fear, ego, pride, or unresolved pain. And when you allow it to run your life, you become predictable, impulsive, and easily manipulated. Think about it. When someone knows exactly how to provoke you, they control you. They say a word, push a button, and boom, you explode. That's not strength. That's weakness masquerading as honesty. That's instinct pretending to be confidence. Now consider response. Response is measured. It's intentional. It doesn't mean you're passive or silent. It means you take ownership of your energy. You give yourself time to process before you speak. You allow your mind to rise above the emotion and ask, what outcome do I want here? Instead of how do I prove I'm right? You begin to lead yourself instead of being led by your emotions. And that's when everything changes. The most powerful people in the world aren't the loudest in the room. They're the calmest. Because calm isn't weakness, it's clarity. They don't let someone else's chaos become their own. They don't let provocation steal their peace. They respond from principle, not pressure. That's the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional slavery. When you respond, you don't just protect your peace, you preserve your potential. You give yourself the freedom to choose wisely. And with that choice comes strength, dignity, and self-respect. Response says, I'm not going to let this moment control me. It says, I will decide how I show up. And in that decision lies freedom. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about directing them. Because when you're always reacting, you lose time, opportunities, and relationships. But when you respond, you gain influence, respect, and momentum. So, the next time your emotions rise, pause, read, ask yourself, is this a reaction or a response? That one question can shift the trajectory of a conversation, a relationship, or even your entire life. There is a hidden power that most people overlook, the power to pause. It sounds simple, almost too simple to matter. But in that pause, between the trigger and your reply, between what happened and what you do next, is where your life is shaped. That small space is not empty, it's full of choice, full of awareness, full of possibility. And yet, it's the one thing people rush right past. Because the world moves fast, our emotions move faster. And without even realizing it, we begin to believe that speed equals strength. That the faster we react, the more in control we are. But the truth is, real control lives in the pause. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to fire back. When things go wrong, your first urge might be to panic, to shut down, to run. But what if you didn't? What if instead you stopped for a breath? Not forever, just long enough to see clearly. Because clarity never comes in chaos. It doesn't come in shouting matches, in rage-fueled texts, or in panicked decisions. It comes in silence, in stillness, in that brief, deliberate pause where you reclaim your power before giving it away to emotion. That pause is not weakness, it's your weapon. Most people never train themselves to pause. They move through life on emotional autopilot, reacting as fast as they can to everything that touches them. And the result? Regret, misunderstandings, broken trust, lost moments. But those who pause, they respond not from emotion, but from principle. They buy themselves time to evaluate, what's really going on here? What's the outcome I want? Will this matter tomorrow? And in doing so, they rise above the moment instead of sinking into it. When you pause, you give yourself permission to think. And thinking is not a delay, it's a decision, a conscious choice to act with intention, not impulse. Think of every argument you've ever won, but every relationship you've lost in the process. Think of every opportunity you've sabotaged because of one moment where emotion overruled wisdom. Now, think of how different things could have been if you had taken just 5 seconds to breathe, to pause, to choose. The pause is where maturity lives. It's where emotional mastery is born. It's the mark of someone who's no longer driven by outside forces, but led by inner strength. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be quick to be strong. Strength is in restraint. Wisdom is in waiting just long enough to let truth rise to the surface before you speak or act. We live in a reaction-driven world, but those who change the world, those who lead, those who influence, those who endure, they know how to pause. They don't let a bad day steal their discipline. They don't let a toxic person control their tone. They use the pause not just to protect their peace, but to shape their response. And because of that, they move through life with more clarity, more confidence, more power. So if you want to train your mind, start here. Start with the pause. Practice it, value it, guard it. Because it may feel small, but it carries weight. And in that weight, you'll find wisdom, direction, and control over the very things that once controlled you. Emotional control is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or something only calm people possess. It's a skill, a muscle, something that can be built, shaped, and sharpened with intention. People often say, that's just the way I am. I can't help it. But that's not true. That's not identity. That's conditioning. It's the result of a mind that has never been trained, because emotional control doesn't come naturally. It comes from practice. And the difference between those who lose themselves in moments and those who lead themselves through them is this: one reacts, the other is trained. You weren't born with emotional discipline, you develop it. And just like going to the gym, it's uncomfortable at first. It feels unnatural. You'll be tempted to go back to your old patterns, to speak before thinking, to raise your voice instead of raising your awareness. But the more you train your mind, the more you start to notice the gap, the space between emotion and action. And in that space, you grow stronger. Not because the emotion disappears, but because you no longer let it control the outcome. Training your mind to manage emotion is not about suppression. It's about direction. Feelings are valid, but they are not leaders. They're indicators, not instructions. You can feel angry without becoming destructive. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. You can feel disappointment without becoming bitter. But that only happens when you start separating how you feel from how you respond. And that's the real power. Learning to feel everything without letting it dictate everything. The people who appear calm under pressure aren't void of emotion. They've simply trained their mind to hold their fire, to sit in discomfort without letting it spill into chaos. They've learned how to channel the energy of emotion into something useful, into listening more deeply, thinking more clearly, and acting more purposefully. That's not luck. That's discipline. And anyone can build it. It's easy to act calm when life is easy, but control is proven in the storm. When you don't get what you expected, when someone says the wrong thing, when the weight of stress starts pushing against your chest, that's where training shows. Because in those moments, your untrained mind will default to emotion. But your trained mind, it will pause, it will evaluate, it will respond with wisdom, not impulse. Emotional control doesn't mean you won't get triggered. It means the trigger doesn't own you. It doesn't get to decide who you become. The moment you stop saying, I can't help how I feel, and start saying, I can help how I respond, is the moment you begin to take your power back. It's the start of mental discipline, and discipline builds the life emotion alone never will. So if you want peace, if you want progress, if you want to build relationships, careers, futures that don't collapse under pressure, you have to train your mind. You have to stop excusing emotional outbursts and start holding yourself to a higher standard. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Because when your emotions are trained, they become tools. When they're untrained, they become traps. And that decision is yours every single day. Anything in your life, your relationships, your progress, your peace, your reputation is shaped not by what you feel, but by what you choose to do with those feelings. Mastering your response is the turning point. It's the difference between temporary emotion and lasting impact. Think about it. One uncontrolled moment can unravel years of trust. One impulsive reaction can derail an opportunity you've worked hard to create. But one wise response in the heat of pressure can open doors, strengthen bonds, and elevate your life to a new level. That's the power you hold, not in what happens to you, but in how you handle it. We live in a world that celebrates expression. Say how you feel, don't hold back, let it all out. But true power isn't in emotional exposure, it's in emotional mastery. Not everything you feel deserves a stage. Some things need a seat. Some things need silence. Because not every situation deserves your energy. Some just demand your wisdom. And when you respond instead of react, you shift from being emotionally driven to purpose-driven. You stop feeding chaos and start fueling direction. And that shift alone can save you from years of unnecessary damage. When you master your response, you're not just protecting the moment, you're shaping your future. You stop being someone who's easy to provoke and start becoming someone who's hard to shake. You become known for your consistency, your steadiness, your ability to think clearly under pressure. And in a world that is constantly reacting, that kind of presence becomes rare. It becomes powerful, it becomes magnetic. People trust those who can stay grounded when the ground is shaking. People follow those who don't let circumstances dictate their character. There's a quiet strength in the person who doesn't have to raise their voice to make a point. A deep influence in the one who can absorb the weight of a moment without losing themselves in it. That's what response gives you. It doesn't just give you control, it gives you credibility. And credibility is currency. It builds trust, it builds stability, it builds a name that people remember. Not because you were loud, but because you were wise. But this kind of mastery isn't easy. It takes practice, it takes awareness, it takes being honest with yourself. You have to ask, why does this trigger me? What am I trying to prove? Is my ego speaking or my vision? These are not weak questions. These are the questions that strong people ask before they speak, before they move, before they respond. Because strong people don't just react for the sake of expression. They respond for the sake of impact. And impact is the goal. You want to leave conversations better than you found them. You want to walk away from situations knowing you added value, not regret. That kind of legacy isn't built in emotional outbursts. It's built in restraint. It's built in patience. It's built in learning to lead yourself before trying to lead anyone else. You're not just responding for today. You're setting the tone for who you become tomorrow. So every time you feel the urge to explode, to lash out, to prove a point, remember this. Response is a seed. What you plant now, you'll harvest later. And if you want to reap peace, progress, and purpose, you must start sowing calm, wisdom, and self-control, even when it's hard. Your future isn't just shaped by what you do, it's protected by how you think. And more specifically, by how well your mind is trained to respond when pressure rises. A trained mind is a guarded gate. It doesn't let every emotion break through. It doesn't let every opinion shake its foundation. It stands firm, not because it avoids struggle, but because it's prepared for it. And that preparation, that inner discipline, is your defense. Most people spend their lives reacting to life and calling it living. But when you train your mind, you don't just survive chaos, you navigate through it with direction, clarity, and control. The untrained mind leaks energy. It overthinks, overreacts, overexplains. It gets hijacked by insecurity, ruled by assumption, and distracted by noise. But a trained mind knows how to filter. It knows what deserves attention and what doesn't. It knows how to sit with discomfort without panicking, how to wait without becoming desperate, how to stay focused even when things feel out of control. And that kind of thinking is what protects your future from unnecessary loss. Because the mind you fail to discipline today becomes the weakness that sabotages your decisions tomorrow. So many people lose what they could have kept, not because they didn't have potential, but because they never learned how to protect it. They let anger burn bridges that were meant to carry them forward. They let pride block health that was meant to lift them. They let fear silence dreams that were fully possible. Why? Because the mind wasn't trained. Emotion made the choices. Reaction took the wheel, and the future paid the price. When your mind is trained, your peace becomes non-negotiable. You stop wasting energy on proving points and start investing it into building solutions. You don't need validation from people who don't understand your journey. You don't chase every argument, every offense, every invitation to drama. You're not pulled in by every emotional wave because your anchor is strong. You're not in a rush to speak, to explain, to prove. You observe, you assess, you choose. And in doing so, you gain a new kind of power. The power of clarity. And clarity is everything. It lets you see what others miss. It helps you hold back when others lash out. It keeps you steady when others collapse under pressure. It turns setbacks into strategies, pain into purpose, delay into preparation. That's what a trained mind does. It transforms reaction into direction. It doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you get stronger. It means you're not mercy of every mood, every setback, every voice that tries to define you. Training your mind isn't a one-time thing. It's a daily commitment, a practice. It's choosing every day to pause before speaking, to listen before assuming, to think before acting. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You stop living in survival mode and start moving with intention. You stop giving your peace away so easily. You stop shrinking your future for the sake of a temporary release. So, if your future is something you truly value, protect it. Guard it with a mind that is sharp, stable, and steady, because in this life you will be tested, you will be provoked. But if your mind is trained, your purpose remains untouched. And no matter what chaos comes, you'll still be standing clear, composed, and in control. So now, the question isn't can you control your emotions, it's will you train your mind to lead them? Because the truth is, your life will always move in the direction of your strongest discipline. Not your strongest feeling, not your strongest opinion, but your ability to pause, to think, and to choose with wisdom. And that power, it's already inside you. You don't need permission. You don't need a perfect past. You just need the decision to stop reacting like who you were and start responding like who you're becoming. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your worst moment. You are the master of your mind, the architect of your response, and the protector of your future. Every day, life will throw things at you that you can't control. But how you respond will determine what you build. That's not just motivation. That's a map. And you hold the pen. So pause before you speak. Breathe before you break. Think before you move. Because your next decision has the power to shift your entire direction. You're not powerless. You're just one trained response away from a completely different outcome. The greatest version of you is not reactive. It's intentional, focused, disciplined, and unshakable. You are capable. You are prepared. And you are ready. Now go prove it. Good luck. And thank you for showing up today with the courage to grow.